Now on to our guest segment with Emmy Wu. Emmy, it's so great to see you. And as you mentioned, you're in this world of videos and you're in this world of promotion. Tell us, what do you do?
So in short, we run two extensions of our brand. We have an agency where we produce videos for clients, and then we also have the educational side where we teach video marketing and kind of our principles to business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, so that they can apply it themselves in their own business.
That sounds great. So let's assume that there's an entrepreneur out there who wants to do some promoting and they don't have like a huge budget. What are some of the things that they can do to promote their business?
Well, I think the beautiful thing about marketing and growing a business in this day and age is that we have access to all this technology that never was available even a decade before. We can literally pull out our smartphone and start live streaming and talking to people on the other side of the earth, which is pretty amazing. So within this, what's available, I think as entrepreneurs, to really leverage that technology. And because I do video and I know the power of video, I'm going to really encourage everyone to use video, because there's nothing like having this medium where people can see you, hear you talk, see your expressions, and really get to build that know, like, and trust factor with you. So using, live stream video is a fairly easy way that most people can leverage to gain more visibility. And I would say, choose a social media platform that best resonates with you and that your ideal clients are hanging out on. I see a lot of business owners feeling like they need to be everywhere. I got to be on Twitter and YouTube and this and that and Clubhouse, and it becomes super overwhelming. So just focus on what you're great at, master that, and then we can always build from there.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. My company's based on video too, but it's different than what you're doing. But it's a startup. I'm not where you are. But one of the reasons I started it was because over the last few years, especially, we've been hearing, well, every business owner needs to use video. Everybody needs to have a video. And you're kind of like, okay, why? What does that mean? Like, how do I use it? And now we're getting more towards, which is along the lines of what you're doing too, is don't shoot a crappy video.
Yeah. Quality matters, that's nuanced too, because I think many of us get so preoccupied by the idea that our videos have to be perfect and they have to be super professional that they stop before they've even started. They think that they failed already because they don't have that fancy camera, so they might as well not try. And it's actually the opposite is true. I think ultimately we have to remember that it's humans at the other end of that avatar, right? We're looking for connection. We're looking for people that we resonate with, people that we share common values with. And if, just doing live video, perhaps the quality isn't as great, but that's kind of your first step to just showing up and getting your message out there. I think that's a wonderful start.
No, that's a really great point. And but so there are so many videos out there. So how do you counsel people to sort of reach in and then figure out ways to differentiate themselves so that they get noticed above the crowd?
Yeah, great question. And I think this is like the perennial question of the entrepreneur, right? How do I get noticed in the sea of like notifications and other businesses? And I think it's really important before we get kind of too stuck on the strategy and the tactics of visibility to really hone it back into what are you about? What is your brand about? And how can you tell that story of your brand in a way that will relate to your ideal clients? And something that I hear really often is, well, I don't really have like this amazing hero's journey story, that I can tell that's like so epic. I just started my business out of my garage, or, I just started from this passion and I want to see where it would go. Then tell that story, just like this belief that our videos need to be perfect. I think there's also a belief that our stories need to be this huge climactic, Indiana Jones type epic story. And it doesn't have to be, right? It truly is the small details that connect with your ideal clients. It's your challenges that reflect those of your customers and clients. It's your triumphs that also reflect that of your audience. So to keep that in mind along the way.
Well, I'm sure Kenya agrees with you. Kenya's been telling us that this show should be all about storytelling since day one. So Kenya, what do you have to say?
Yeah, and that's what we've been doing this whole time, right? So just curious, I feel like the marketing landscape changes daily, like especially in digital media. So what would you say are some of the marketing must-haves going into 2022?
Great question. So something that I'm pretty firm on in terms of my brand, and it's not, to say that this is the be all end all, but this is just my perspective in that strategies and tactics and algorithms and technology is always going to change. It literally changes every day. What used to be hot last year is not so hot anymore. And how do we keep up with that constant change? My opinion, we don't. We actually leverage our own greatest power on the platform that matters to us. So, for example, leveraging storytelling, something that is going to be fundamentally true across all businesses and across different eras of marketing is that every business has cold, warm, and hot leads. And so despite the tactics or even the platforms that you're using, you can keep in mind that in my marketing, I should approach my audience with these 3 different types of messages as a very foundational kind of starting point, and then leveraging the platform that most resonates with you to then implement that.
What I'm hearing you say is the fundamentals of marketing have not changed over the last few hundred years. It's just the tools that we use change. And that's kind of what Kenya was saying too. And so you're teaching people to use this new tool, video, in the marketing world of 2022.
Right. Yeah. But sticking to storytelling, sticking to, classic forms of connecting with other people that are going to ride out the test of time. Clubhouse might not be here in a couple of years. Who knows what's going on with Facebook ads and the algorithms and iOS changes. And we can use that as a complaint. Why can't I do this? Why can't I get more visibility? This is always changing. But instead of focusing on the things that we can't do, I say it's really important for us to focus on the things that we can do and that we have power over. And how can we really dig deep into that and make the most of what we do have?
I agree. And I think another part of marketing that's sometimes overlooked is to have a successful business, you have to do a good job. You have to, whatever your brand promises are or whatever the customer expects from you, you have to deliver that consistently and effectively. And that's like, that in and of itself will drive customers to you, right? The marketing is a way to reach more people to experience that good service or product, but you have to have the basics and the fundamentals down first, because if you don't, then you're going to lose customers no matter how hard you market, right? So
absolutely. At the end of the day, it is all about relationship building, right? And kind of going back to what I said around every business has cold, warm, and hot audiences. Something that, particularly in kind of the online marketing world, there has been this tendency to jump in front of your audiences and almost like pitch your offers and start selling your thing right away, which, for us as a consumer, it doesn't feel really good, right? Like we don't want to be pitched this thing right off the bat. And so when we think about building human relationships, we wouldn't start getting to know somebody, starting to build a friendship by like running right up to them and being all up in their face and being like, hey, you want to marry me? That would be a little bit weird, right? And yet,
unless you're my son's dog. My son's dog will do that. He'll run up right into your face and you're like, okay, let's get married, but normal people don't do that. So
Right.
And seriously, through this whole quarantine that we've been in, we've realized how important these relationships are, right? Like we took them for granted before, and now it's like, holy crap, I need to see people.
Absolutely.
So, we were talking before about what an important tool video is, and I couldn't agree with you more, but I'm also hearing people talk about Zoom fatigue and everything else. And I agree that video is the best way to communicate your message. But in light of all the time that we're spending on the tube, does that in any way diminish the importance of video? Or
ironically, the statistics actually prove opposite.
Really?
In that in the world where we are so much missing human connection, video has gone upwards exponentially, particularly short form videos. So, 60 seconds or less, getting to the point, very educational, very fun. The opposite end of the spectrum is it is a bit of a dopamine hit, going through these fast moving videos. And yet I think there's something really important to be said, as business owners, how can we then, knowing that your audience is looking for connection, maybe they don't want to be, online watching an hour-long training, how can we slightly pivot our marketing strategies to meet the needs of our audience?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the research I've been looking at for 2022, which is all online, I don't buy the really good research, but anyway, says people want to watch short videos, but LinkedIn and YouTube want you to do long videos. So you gotta
we were
do
like,
both.
that gets totally confusing.
Yeah. But Kenya, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm glad you brought up YouTube, Elizabeth, because I've run some YouTube campaigns where we have found statistically that 30-second YouTube videos do much better on a marketing campaign. So it's interesting that, well, no, it makes sense though too. They might want you to run longer content because then it allows for like a better insertion of ads. But it's interesting about like the whole YouTube craze, and I wanted to see, Emmy, kind of how you feel about what's happening in the YouTube space.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they are right now all the platforms are kind of going after what's working statistically, right? TikTok has really taken the lead since the beginning of the pandemic with like short form, punchy videos. And so Instagram is like, oh, we have to do reels now. And then YouTube is like, oh, now we're going to do shorts. And fine. But again, for me, it's like, how can we take a step back and again, looking at traditional relationship building? I think the reason why short form videos are working so well now is because that is how you kind of make that first connection with people in real life. It is going for that quick coffee meeting or having that first quick date. You're not going to sit down and like spend the entire weekend together if that's your first meeting. And so longer form generally seems to fit warm and hot markets better, where there is a bit of that relationship already and they are invested in learning with you a little bit deeper. Whereas cold audiences, they don't want to hear the whole story. Just give me the goods. And so those short, punchy forms really work well for cold audiences.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I have never really heard it segmented that way. So that's really an interesting
excellent
approach.
I got to tell you though, Emmy, so we're doing a special Passage to Profit called Ask the IP Experts. I don't know if this will air before that airs, but we're trying to promote it. And so I've been trying to do 30-second videos for that. And it's hard to get everything into a 30-second video sometimes. I did it, and we have a program coordinator, and Richard's done a couple, but his are like 45 seconds. She's like, nope, that's too long. Sorry. So we've done one that she'll accept. And it's for Facebook ads, right?
if it's an engaging 45 seconds, then people will watch it. If it's,
What she says, and maybe you can answer this for us. She says people look at the time on the video before they decide whether to watch it. And if it's more than 30 seconds, they're like, nah, next one.
I mean, I know that to be true, certainly for myself. I can't be the only one, right? And even for reading on the internet, most of us are skimmers. Statistics have shown that we actually don't read word for word on the internet, on websites. So in some ways, attention spans are getting shorter, right? But I also think that when you have great content, when you have a compelling message, people are going to stick around for that. So yes, to exploring short form, how can we make your message really succinct, really to the point that your audience is going to understand that right away? And how can we play around with other forms that might meet other segments of your audience even better?
Yeah, I mean, so I think sometimes I personally, I don't pay that much attention to the time. If it says 10 minutes, then I'm out. But the whole point is to keep your audience engaged and deliver value, right? And so if you're doing that, then people will continue on, but maybe they won't open it in the first place. So I guess that could be an issue.
Remember when we grew up, so kind of dating myself here. When we grew up, there were like 3 or 4 TV stations, and you got to watch what they wanted to show you when they wanted to show it to you. Now it's everything, everywhere, all the time. And so I think that's why people are just looking at like 30 seconds of something, and they're like, okay, I got enough.
Yeah. And I would also add that long form videos are also successful. Right now, media platforms are pushing the short forms, but ultimately the goal of every social media platform is to keep the user on their platform. So for a long time, they were actually promoting videos that were 10 minutes or longer. So for example, Facebook, uploading a video natively to Facebook that is 10 minutes long or longer, told the algorithm to actually push your video to more organic views, right? And as opposed to, say, linking a YouTube video. So I think ultimately it's really about knowing your audience, knowing what they are drawn to, and leveraging what is true for you in terms of your storytelling forms of video that you feel most authentic and effective with, and really running with that.
So I was just going to ask, if you're an entrepreneur and you're still trying to figure out who your audience is, what are some ways to do that?
Great question. So I think when it comes to selecting your niche and knowing your ideal clients, frankly, that can be more confusing than, we walk out of customer avatar exercises feeling even more confused than when we walked into it. But I think by starting with you, teaching what you know, sharing who you are, just leading with that authenticity magnetizes people who believe the same things, share the same values, kind of resonate in the same way. And then over time, with that consistency, you will start to attract people and start to notice the trends and kind of the demographics possibly that you're drawing in. So, but you have to take that initiative to first be showing up consistently and sharing your message.
So Emmy, you've talked a lot about being on social media. One thing I did for the Gearhart Law website was short, like 20-second videos on the homepage of each of the attorneys. And I've gotten mixed reviews. So people that are in the know are like, no, that's stupid. People that come to the site, though, some of them really like that. So should you be putting videos on your website? And is it a good idea to put like a 30-second introduction of yourself on your website?
So I wish I could give you a black and white answer that'd be like, oh, godlike comes through and like everybody gets
I
more
wish you could
traffic
too.
on their
Wow.
website all of a sudden,
We definitely
but-
want to copyright the godlike stuff.
Yes,
If we can get
yes.
it, yeah.
I would imagine that's even harder than the Dune book. But I think depending on what your business is, what your goals and objectives are for your website, that's going to determine what type of video content you have on there. Now, for the show in particular, because you are drawing cold audiences who might just want that short 20-second taster. Like, I don't want to watch a full episode yet. I just want to know a little bit about, who Elizabeth is. And I just want to feel out her vibe. I think that's a great idea, right? And particularly on your social media platforms too, because that's actually the first touch point of your cold audiences. Usually then people go from your social media, then to your website.
Right.
So I personally like to treat my website almost like the second point of contact, where it's like, now this is my magical world that you've come into. How can I bring you in? How can I show you more about us and the brand and what we're all about?
Oh, that's
Excellent.
great.
Well-
That's that really great, interesting strategy. And
Yeah.
do you think that it's important for an entrepreneur to like budget for social media advertising? And again, how can they? Let's say they decide to spend $500 or $1,000 a month. What is the best way for them to use that, do you think?
In my opinion, I think that if you have a small-ish budget, say $500 to $1,000, you're probably best served running a video as a video views campaign. So whether on Facebook or Instagram, that's something that I've always done in my business and something that we teach our customers and clients as well, because it's reasonably a low cost ad spend. But with even $5 a day, you can literally reach thousands of new eyeballs. And with the right piece of video content, that's ultimately, reaching new eyeballs is the lifeblood of any business, right? So having that little piece of content that is the first touch point between your cold audiences and you, generally not pitching anything, but something about your shared values, something about your brand, and allowing that to run on autopilot is really powerful.
That's excellent. That was called Video Views campaign.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes,
Good.
exactly.
I have one last question, and I think we're running out of time for this segment, but let's go back to content for a minute. What I've been reading recently is, okay, so 30 seconds is the magic number, and try to even be less than that if you can, but you have to grab their attention from the first couple seconds. So how do you, I don't want to look like an idiot. Like, I could jump around with a stupid hat on my head and probably get people's attention, right? But how do you do that and kind of stay serious
I'd like
about
to see that. I think we should try a few videos like that.
But how do you stay serious about your business and grab attention?
So I think that the crux is in the question right there, in that you almost have to choose, am I going to be serious or am I going to get somebody's attention? All right. So because what captures attention is something that is uncanny, a little unusual, something that's going to pique my interest, something that I don't expect to see in a video, or what is that person doing? That's going to pique somebody's interest. And we've seen across the social media landscape, and particularly TikTok, it's dancing, it's singing, it's, doing these things that I know for me as somebody in my 40s, I'm like, I am not doing a TikTok dance on social media. That is just not how I want to market, right? And maybe when I was 20,
What are you
but
thinking?
not now. It's just not my vibe. However, we can still use traditional principles to capture attention. So I guess more directly answering your question, if we want to be more on the serious side, we can use movement across a screen to capture attention, because our human eye is naturally drawn to movement. So it can be as simple as waving close up into the camera, gesturing towards the viewer directly. You can have interesting text that, moves or bounces across, or even just something very unconventional that perhaps really stands out in the feed. So say, for example, you're running a video views campaign on Facebook where it is largely people and faces. Maybe you're using an image, an object that's really different that will stand out from the sea of faces. So it's kind of knowing where you're going to be showing that video, the context that it's going to be within, and how can I use movement, something that's interesting and unusual to then capture attention.
Well, Emmy, oh my gosh, like next time I do a video, I'm coming to talk to you. So,
I would love that.
so how do people find you?
Yeah, they can find me on my website. That's emmywu.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Emmy Wu Media.
Excellent.
Great. Well, we need to take a break. You're listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest, Emmy Wu, who has been just a wealth of information. And we'll be right back after this.